beneath the floorboards. I had barely settled into the small house when the scratching started. It was faint at first, barely audible beneath the creaks of the old floorboards. I tried to dismiss it as the house settling, a soundscape of wood and age. But each night, it grew louder, as if something under the floor was clawing its way closer to the surface. One evening, after an especially restless night, I decided to investigate. Flashlight in hand, I knelt on the floor of the bedroom, pressing my ear to the wooden boards. There it was, a scratching, slow and rhythmic, like nails scraping the underside of the floor. My stomach twisted, but I couldn't tear myself away. The sound was intentional, like someone or something was deliberately dragging its fingers across the wood. I lifted a floorboard, hoping to uncover nothing but dust and cobwebs. Instead, I found a small, dark space, just big enough to hold a box wrapped in a faded, tattered cloth. The smell hit me first, earthy and decayed, like the remnants of something long forgotten. I pulled the box out and set it down in front of me, heart pounding, hands shaking. The cloth fell away to reveal an old, weathered wooden box, its surface covered in strange, jagged carvings. They looked almost like runes or symbols, something ancient and forbidding. My fingers hovered over the lid, my mind screaming to leave it alone. But I couldn't stop. With a deep breath, I pried it open. Inside were scattered, brittle pieces of paper, covered in handwriting that looked rushed and uneven. Words and phrases jumped out at me. Curse, trapped, never escape. One paper was clearer than the others, a single line scrawled in dark ink. Do not listen to it. Do not let it out. A shiver ran down my spine and I quickly closed the box, shoving it back into the floor. I replaced the board and stood, trying to shake off the creeping dread that wrapped itself around me. But that night, as I lay in bed, the scratching returned, louder, more frantic. It wasn't coming from beneath the floor anymore. It was coming from the walls. I clamped my hands over my ears, heart racing, praying it would stop. But the scratching grew faster, the sound twisting into something like whispering, voices overlapping and merging into an incomprehensible hum. The words from the note echoed in my mind. Do not listen to it. In a blind panic, I bolted from the room, racing down the hall. But the scratching followed, seeming to echo through every wall of the house. I stumbled down to the basement, desperate for some way to escape. The air was thick and stale, and the walls down here were lined with old, crumbling stone. The scratching was deafening now, an urgent, insistent sound. I pressed myself against the wall, heart pounding, feeling the rough stone beneath my palms. Then suddenly it stopped. The silence was worse. It pressed down on me, so thick I could feel it in my bones. I didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe. Then, from behind the wall, a voice, faint and distant, whispered my name. I froze, my mind racing. It was a voice I hadn't heard in years, a voice that belonged to someone long dead. I stumbled back, tripping over the steps as I fled the basement. I locked myself in the bathroom, my back against the door, gasping for air. The silence had returned, but now it was filled with a terrible, expectant weight, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting. And from below, beneath the floorboards, the scratching began again, slow and steady, each scrape more deliberate than the last.